Tuesday, it is that time to talk money matters.
Yeah, well, signing a car finance agreement that comes with a balloon payment means your monthly repayments will be more affordable.
In the end, though, this balloon payment could actually come back to bite you, haunt you.
Yeah, well, don't despair. Our personal finance guru, Maya Fisher-French, is here in our studio today for the first time ever since we started Money Matters. It is so good to have you in the studio. I'm more excited about you being here than what you want to talk about.
balloon payments, yeah. Welcome, Maya.
I'm also more excited here.
Thanks for coming all the way to Joburg to talk balloon payments.
I think it's important to talk about how you deal with this so you don't have that massive bill at the end of it. Morning, Maya. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you. And this actually came from a reader query. You know, that I get people reading into listeners, please, tell us your questions. We will answer them. And of course, as you know, I mean, like, never take a balloon payment. It's just car finance 101. And even banks will tell you that. It's generally the dealerships who will try and encourage you to take that balloon payment or residual at the end to buy the more expensive car, basically the car you cannot afford. That's the only reason you take a balloon or residual payment. But what if you already have one? What if it's like, okay, Maya, this is a little too late? And a reader wrote to me, they said, okay, what if at the end of my term, so my car's being financed over 60 months, I want that balloon payment to be paid off by the time I get to that 60 months, instead of sitting there another 50,000 Rand that I still owe. So I actually spoke to the banks, and what I discovered was that you can accelerate your monthly repayments. You can say, right, I'm going to add in an extra 1,000 or 2,000 Rand a month. But you need to tell the bank that you're doing that to pay off the balloon payment. I didn't realize this, because if you don't tell them, it doesn't necessarily get allocated to the balloon payment. So you need to phone the bank or your financer, say to them, how much extra do I need to be putting in every month in order that by the end of my payment period, that balloon payment's been taken care of. And then they'll actually allocated towards that. So I think that's a really, really great strategy, because rather than coming to the end of that period and having to find 30,000, 40,000 Rand.
Now, I'm very doff about these things, and I tell you this almost every week that we talk, Maya, that I don't know much about these things, but things like early settlements and all of that, like sometimes when it comes to home loans and things, my experience is that you sort of get penalized for that kind of thing. Will the same thing happen if you're able to sort this out before you get to that big amount?
As long as you've informed them. So generally speaking, they like to know sort of 3 months in advance. So that's exactly it. Pick up the phone, have the conversation, saying, I'm wanting to settle this. So remember, with a balloon payment, there's not actually an early settlement in that case. If you are financing it over 60 months and you're paying it off within 48 months, that could possibly be seen as an early settlement. Although the banks are really moving away from that kind of penalties, because they want people to rather be paying and get their money back. So I would still have that conversation, pick up the phone and say, this is what I'm planning on doing. But certainly with balloon payment, they don't mind that you've fully settled the balloon payment by the end of the period. There's no penalty, because you're actually expected to settle your balloon payment on that at the end of that.
Yeah, but most people sit and wait to the end, and then in the end there's this big bill to say, you want the car, you must still pay so many hundreds of thousands of Rand.
Exactly, and they wait for it and then hoping that they'll win the lotto before then. I think that's generally most people's strategy. But the other thing that I found out quite interesting, which one of the banks told me, was that if you are doing that, so say you're saying to them, I want this to go towards the balloon payment, they still see it as an advance payment. So they see you as being not in arrears, but being in advance in your payments. So if 1 month you can't afford to pay in that extra 1,000 or whatever, it doesn't penalize you. It's not like suddenly you've missed the payment, because all they see it is in advance. And in some ways, it can actually help you if you get into a little bit of difficulty.
Yeah, just a general question. I think that's very clear. Balloon payments, have they only been designed from financing perspective for vehicles, or do they exist in other kinds of credit? Do you know, Maya?
That's actually a really good question. Possibly in other asset financing, because funny enough, balloon payments were more designed for the corporate environment rather than for individuals.
Okay.
Because corporates, especially if you look almost in the leasing sense, that every 3 years you possibly need to upgrade your car or your equipment. That is where kind of the balloon payment or residual came from, and then it was sort of started to get introduced into the retail market. It's not actually, wasn't originally a retail product.
So what happens at the end? You get to the end, you haven't put money aside, you've got this big balloon payment that you actually can't pay. What's the worst that can happen? What will happen to you?
You'll have to sell your car. That's pretty much what you have to do. So either you refinance it, so the banks will refinance it over another 2 or 3 years. Now imagine if you financed your car over 6 years. You know all those adverts that say this car for only 2,000 Rand a month? Read the fine print. They all say 72 months plus a residual, okay? So you've been paying this off for 6 years, and now you're going to refinance it for another 2-3 years. I mean, the car is worth nothing by then, and you're still paying for it. So you can refinance it, you can find the money, or you're going to have to sell your car. And generally speaking, by that time, the devaluation on your car, you're not going to get out much extra.
And some people, I've heard these stories before, then they find themselves in the continuing cycle where the dealership will say, okay, because you can't do this, you can't do that, we can do another deal and give you the latest model.
Give the latest model.
Yeah.
And you just sit in perpetual debt.
And the suckers like me who love cars say, yeah, I'm getting a new model.
I'll take it.
More debt.
Well, you know, more and more people are choosing to Uber instead of owning a car. I'll tell you that.
I'll tell you something, we're selling our family second car for that reason. We've just realised that the cost of holding 2 cars is not worth it.
Yeah.
We need one family car, especially for holidays and trips and putting the dogs in it. But we don't actually necessarily need the second car when you consider the insurance as well on that petrol and how often we're using it. So I think there is this big shift to Uber. And
all the safety tracking devices you have to pay for monthly as well.
Absolutely.
To protect your car from hijacking. Maya, thank you very much. It's
lovely to see you in the flesh.
Stuff.
Lovely.
Good to see you in the flesh, and that was really our this week's Money Matters with Maya Fisher French. Beware of